Welcome, Spiritual Mag update for June 22nd, 2022. What is the Great White Brotherhood? Is it a new hamburger stand? We don't know. We'll have to explore. But there really is a Great White Brotherhood that's helping. Here we go. Wikipedia, right here, Great White Brotherhood. Is it a racist organization? A hamburger stand? A new kind of car? What is it? A religion? Is it men? Let's see. Wikipedia, Great White Brotherhood. Not to be confused with White Brotherhood. Oh, I guess it's not a racist organization. No. Let's see. The Great White Brotherhood, in belief system akin to Theosophy and New Age, are said to be perfected beings of great power who spread spiritual teaching through selected humans. The members of the Brotherhood may be known as the Masters of the Ancient Wisdom. It's pretty cool. The Ascended Masters, the Church Invisible, or simply as the Hierarchy. The first person to talk about them in the West was Helena Blavatsky, Theosophy. After she and other people claimed, actually a lot of people have claimed to communicate with the Great White Brotherhood, and that's what we're going to be talking about now, my direct experience with the Great White Brotherhood. By Alice Bailey, Aleister Crowley, Guy Ballard, Elizabeth Clare Prophet, and Benjamin Creme, also Sylvia Brown. So, here it says in history, the idea of a secret organization of enlightened mystics guiding the spiritual development of the human race. Well, that's basically what it is. It's very interesting. It's very, very interesting. Now, I went to heaven in 1996, September 21st, and for a few years I couldn't do anything but read metaphysical, spiritual, religious documents, historical documents, anything I can get to absorb. And the Great White Brotherhood is in a lot of different places in a lot of different ages. And it's very, very interesting. So what I'm sharing with you now is none of that. Nothing that's written in any book that I read. I'm only sharing my direct experiences with this. So I don't really share this because it's really, really heavy. It's like seeing a UFO kind of thing. It's so heavy. At least for me it was. Here's what occurred. I am a speech and language pathologist, a couple offices in Southern California, a couple dozen therapists, speech pathologists, etc. A lot of experience with all different kinds of human beings. And I was helping a gentleman. He wasn't my patient, but I would help him. He'd like to go on the patio and smoke a pipe. Well, it turns out, 20 years later, it's the father of Sylvia Celeste Brown. And I was at the end of my rope, just totally the end of my rope. I didn't know what to do. Healthcare is a war zone. People are starting to figure that out, and that's for people who can use speech and language and who can defend themselves and who can buy insurance. But I was working with basically the people that couldn't talk and couldn't buy insurance. And it's like, it really is a nightmare. So I contacted her. She said, "You helped my father, I'll help you." I went in and visited with her, and my life immediately began to change very abruptly because I realized that spirituality does exist. There is a spirituality. So I learned that she communicates with her spirit guide, Francine. And I was a minister in training. I was with her just very briefly, a few months. And during that time, I learned a lot. I got to know Sylvia. Wow. So Sylvia on her own is a psychic. Also, she's a full trance channel, so she can leave her body and another entity can enter into her body and use her physical body. And she had a very good rapport. That's an understatement. She had some superior rapport with her spirit guide, Francine. So one day I'm getting ready to go, and one of the bishops said, "No, Sam, you got to stay because Sylvia's going to bring in Rahim." I'm like, "Rahim? Who's Rahim? I don't know Rahim." I said, "Well, I'm pretty tired. I got to go." And she goes, "No, you got to stay. You got to see Rahim. He doesn't come in very often." I'm like, "Okay." So it's a privilege, and it's only the ministers in training in the bishop's room there, and everybody's excited. I didn't know what was going to happen. Well, she comes out with a few people that are with her, and she's a completely different state. Completely different state. Kind of like, a genie would be like this with muscles tight, that's how she was. And I think there was 4 fans. I know there's 2 industrial-sized fans on her. She was on a stage and the fans were blowing on her, cooling her down. And she was seated with her arms crossed and her legs crossed. I was like, whoa. And I'd been there all day and I had a seat saved right in the front, had my name on it. Somebody came and took my name off and sat in it. Oh, what the hell? And so I was in the very back, but you could feel the energy off her like it was a burning fire. So everybody could ask one question of this entity called Rahim. And Rahim was introduced as an individual from the Great White Brotherhood, an individual who had not incarnated and is in association with the Great White Brotherhood. I'm like, okay, I don't know any of these things. I don't know. Who's the Great White Brotherhood? I don't know. So, okay, well, everybody's like, and each one's asking their own question, their own separate questions. So it gets to me, and I'm asked, at the time I'm commuting back and forth to Auckland, New Zealand from LA, usually LA. And I go every couple of months back and forth. I think I've been back and forth 13 times. And in New Zealand, they don't like the French detonating these nuclear weapons just off the coast of Tahiti because it's polluting the ocean, and the Kiwis are all anti-nuclear and the French are kind of like nuclear, NATO and that kind of stuff. So I asked my question. I didn't ask really a personal question. Well, it is personal. For me, it was very personal. I asked, is there anything I can do to stop the French nuclear testing that the French are doing off the coast of Tahiti? And there was a pause, and Rahim said, I don't know, let me go check with the Great White Brotherhood. I'm like, okay. I'm like, duh. So he answers some more questions, and then he comes back. And he says, we have an answer from the Great White Brotherhood, and that the president of Jacques, we have his name here. Where is it here? Jacques Chirac, we can't violate his free will. And he wants to get reelected. He wants to show how powerful he is, so he's detonating these nuclear weapons. So we can't violate his free will, so he's still going to do that. However, we understand, the Great White Brotherhood does, that this nuclear test that's going off is going to cause the volcano that Auckland City is built on in New Zealand. And it's going to really destroy the city when this volcano takes off. But instead, the Great White Brotherhood was going to make earth adjustments so that the volcano releases the energy underwater. So this Great White Brotherhood is the real deal to me. I have to say that, metaphysics is kind of, hooey and it's kind of airy-fairy and stuff, but when the volcano went off underwater and a puff of volcanic steam and stuff came out the top of the volcano in Auckland and got blown out over the Tasman Sea unusually, it was a big deal to me. So I was like, So January 96 was the last nuclear test of Tahiti. And that same month, 96, the President Jacques Chirac announced he wasn't going to do any more Pacific nuclear tests, which is pretty darn cool. Made the Kiwis pretty happy. Also Greenpeace. So, Sylvia, really big wampum. Major wampum. And as a full trance channel, it was very interesting for me to watch. She was like a completely different. Now, the Galactic Federation, as I understand it, everything is organized on the other side. Has to come from metaphysics, the physics behind physics, into physics. And it all starts with consciousness that people perceive as thought. So everything that we see and hear and perceive is not really a physical thing. It's a thought that's structured into a physical thing that we perceive at the frequencies that we can perceive. So the relationship between the Galactic Federation and everything, it's like Grand Central Station. It's like Grand Central Station. And there's all kinds of new stuff happening all the time in countless dimensions. So our space here on planet Earth is not doing that well. So our space brothers and sisters are reaching down at this specific time to help us elevate our consciousness. It's not a government agency that's reaching down to help me or help you in elevating your consciousness or my consciousness. It's up to each of us ourselves. So our space brothers and sisters are infusing many people to do what is called a water ceremony, because water has memory. This is where science and spirituality suddenly aren't separated anymore. You can put intentions and feelings into water, and that includes the water that's in your body. So the water ceremony is a combination of specific thought forms from Pleiades, a group from Pleiades, thought forms from the angelic room, guardian angels specifically, for each of you, and me, Daisy, and also Orion, a group from Orion. So those three different groups, actually including ourselves and before, are reaching up. And our space brothers and sisters are reaching down to do the water ceremony. And that's going to be the next program. It's a big deal. Nobody can stop you. It doesn't cost anything. You can be totally creative, and you'll see how easy it is to do. Make you feel better, and our entire world a lot better place. You and all your loved ones are always in my prayers.